one thing that I love that you say about authenticity is because it's not a tangible thing, right? We can't measure it. It's not visible. But what I love the question that you ask in the book is just to notice when it's not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that it feels like a hollowness or like a fake smile or something
That's right. And
yeah.
haven't we all had the experience of being in a conversation with somebody, and then afterwards, I wasn't being honest there. I wasn't being authentic there. I was agreeing in order to be liked, or I wasn't saying how it was for me because I was afraid I would be rejected, or I was just trying to fit in. And there's the kind of, as you say, there's the kind of hollow feeling about it. The thing is to notice that without being critical of oneself. Like I used to feel shame around that when I would do that in the past, and I remember that shame. The thing is to be curious about it. Wonder why I did that. Wonder what made me do that. What was my fear of being myself? And the important thing about noticing it is not just to notice it so that we don't do it again, but there's something deeper here. When you're noticing, who's noticing? Who's noticing? Who's noticing that I'm not being authentic? It's the authentic self that's noticing it. So the noticing it automatically strengthens the authentic self. And of course we all do it. And if every time we do it, if we notice it afterwards and can sort of just ask ourselves, what was my fear or what was my belief? That strengthens the authentic self. And, that's why actually a lot of us, as we get older, we actually get a lot freer. And I've known a lot of women who around menopause or afterwards, all of a sudden they experience the freedom because they don't give a damn anymore. They'd much rather be themselves than be accepted or, at the cost of suppressing themselves. Well, the fact is we don't have to wait till old age. And
I love that. I love observing that freedom that you see in people sometimes when it's just like, no. And you actually have a great passage in the book too. It's on page 142, the chapter Before the Body Says No.
Yeah.
And there are 6 questions that you ask.
Yeah.
And it actually is about the word no and how scary it is for us to use sometimes, and questions to play with. Again, this is such a curious exercise. It's not, there's no judgment around it. You just, where did I say no to? Like, where did I want to say no today, but I didn't? What was my story? Like, what would I believe about myself if I said no in that situation? Could you speak to no for a moment? Because I think it's scary. I think especially for women, maybe. I don't know, men too, but the no thing is hard.
Well, so an earlier book of mine is called When the Body Says No.
Yeah.
And it's about the mind-body unity, about how this is just the science of it. This is not clever intuition. This is science. I also noticed it, but the science is there. That, again, the people that tend to develop chronic illness tend to be people that don't know how to say no to the emotional needs of others. Now, do you have children, by the way?
No, I don't.
No. All right. Well, if you did, you'd find out that what's the first thing a kid says when they get to be a year and a half.
Oh, I used to be a nanny, and I know the power of no in children. Yeah. It is firm, and they are resolute. Yeah.
Yeah. So, why don't they start saying yes first? Wouldn't it be nicer for us? Time for dinner.
Yes.
Yes.
Time for bath. Yes.
Time for bath. Yes. No, they say no. Now, why do they do that? They do that because nature is very smart. And nature says that if you don't know how to say no, your yeses don't mean a thing. And so that in order to develop your own will and your own sense of what you value and meaning and who you are and what you like and what you don't like, you have to be able to say no. So at first it's kind of automatic. And then that automatic little no that the kid utters is like a little wall behind which their own will can develop. Okay. Then what happens is a lot of people don't know how to say no anymore. There's a no there that they want to say, that wants to be said, but they don't say it. Now, what I noticed in family practice is that when people don't know how to say no, their bodies will say it in the form of illness. So that chronic illness is very often the body saying no when the person couldn't. And if the person develops the capacity to say no, their potential to heal is much better. Now, where does this come from? Given that nature gave us that no as a birthright, how did we lose it? We lost it because we learned that in order to be accepted and attached to, we had to please others. And so the saying no becomes a very scary proposition. So you told me you lived in Miami. Okay, so let's say I landed in Miami next week and I called you up and, hey, Susie, should we go for coffee? But you've been up all night because your husband was sick. And you were tired. And you didn't say no. The exercise says, where this week did you not say no? Where there's a no that wanted to be said? Okay? Then the second question is, what was the impact of you not saying no? So if you had been up all night and I asked to go for coffee and you said no, what would be the impact on you, do you think? How would that affect you?
This is kind of getting into my next favorite question, which is around resentment and how that feels in the body and like feeling stretched, feeling annoyed with myself. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you'd feel resentment, and physically what would happen to you? You just hang up all night.
Start to, it's everything in your body says a physical no somehow.
Yeah, well, you'd be tired for one thing. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, and then the third question. So the first question is, where did I not say no? Where does that no that wanted to be said? And that happens in two areas, work and personal relationships. Mm-hmm. So your partner wants to have sex, but you don't feel like it. And you don't say no. That's an example. Or a friend wants to go for coffee, or your boss wants you to take on another project, and you don't say no. What's the impact? The impact is going to be tired and all kinds of other things, and you'll be resentful.
Yeah.
Then the third question is, what's the belief behind me not saying no? So let's say I do come to Miami and I do ask you for coffee, and you have been up all night, and you don't say no. What would you believe? What do you think would be your belief that would have you not saying no? What would you be believing? If I say no, then what?
If I say no, then, well, I'm not in a position to, because I'm not special enough to say no yet. I have to earn affection. I have to work at things like my needs aren't worth much. Yeah.
So I don't have the right to say no. Yes. I don't have the right to say no. Or if I say no, he won't like me. Or if I say no,
and that's it.
Yeah. Or if I say no, I'm being selfish.
There's a risk.
Or some, yeah. There's always some story behind. Anyway, so the exercise takes people. Now, I've been told by many people that just doing that exercise regularly has totally changed their lives.
When I brought this word up, resentment, one of my favorite things I've ever heard anyone say ever was from you. And it was about resentment versus guilt. If you remember this?
I do.
And could you explain? I mean, I've told like 7,000 people about this already, and everyone's like, whoa, whoa, really? I get to choose. So would you share with us?
I wish I could claim authorship, but I didn't. I can't. I heard it from a therapist. Okay. And they said, whenever there's a choice between resentment and guilt, choose the guilt every time. So if I show up in Miami and I want, let's go for coffee, and you say no, and you feel guilty, that's better than you say yes and you feel resentment. because the resentment really is a poison. And it really does eat you up. Like, you know, when you think of when you're resentful, what does it feel like inside to be resentful? You know?
It's horrible. It's like this seed that grow. And it makes you mad with everyone. And I mean, I even had a friend recently down here in Miami. She was attending a wedding she didn't want to go to, but she was like, oh, I should go because it's the right thing.
Yeah.
And then of course there's money, time. There's also a travel delay. The whole thing just made her. And I was like, you know, if you do this over a prolonged period, it's going to impact your health. All of this.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I say choose the guilt. Because the thing with the guilt, it's one of these dynamics that I call jokingly the stupid friend, you know? And what I mean by that is that guilt came along in childhood. When you said no to people, the guilt came along to keep you saying yes, because to say no threatened your relationships. So the guilt comes and says, you better say yes. And that'll keep you in your attachment relationship. So it's a friend that wanted to keep you safe. The stupidity comes in that the guilt hasn't learned that you're no longer a 4-year-old. That you're actually free now to make your own decisions without having to comply. But the guilt doesn't get that. So I just say, treat it like a stupid friend, you know. Okay, here you are again. Thanks, but no thanks. So choose the guilt. Yeah. And once you do, you'll find it'll start learning that it's okay for you to choose yourself. So yeah, choose the guilt.
Because just through the...
Go ahead.
Yeah. So through the act of choosing guilt again and again, it almost like the volume of it becomes a new normal, almost somehow for you.
Yeah, it finally gets it, that you can handle yourself and it doesn't need you anymore. Now, there's healthy guilt, of course.
Yes.
You know, if I showed up on this podcast inebriated, I mean, I don't drink, there's no chance of that, but, you know, if I did, I should feel some healthy remorse. But that's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm talking about that sort of corrosive guilt that keeps you from being yourself.
Mm.